After 4 years of decluttering in client homes, I have learned that a major portion of the items we declutter accumulates over holidays and special occasions. No matter how much we have tried to simplify our Christmas gifts, I know that there will be an influx of items coming in to our home over the next month. Therefore, I recently did a pre-holiday purge of 5 specific spaces in our home. Today, I'm going to show you what I'm letting go of, why, and hopefully inspire you to simplify your home before the busy holiday season. Our first stop was in our son Leo's room, who just turned 9. We are big readers in our house and huge library goers, and although we don't typically keep a ton of books, lately the book box in Leo's room has been overflowing. And sadly, he's getting to sort of like an era where he's out of picture books for the most part, except for a few special ones, and he's more into like novels and graphic novels and that sort of thing. And I also knew that he would definitely be getting more books at Christmas, so I wanted to make sure we had ample space in this area. So the first space I tackled for my pre-holiday purge was the book box in Leo's bedroom. This is a great example of having physical limits to control the amount of items in our home. If I felt like Leo really was truly reading and needing all of these books, then I actually would have been open to creating a bigger area like a shelf or something with more space. But I know for a fact that a huge portion of these books could go. And I also sort of knew that it was me stalling because I'm not super emotional about it, but I knew it'd be sort of tricky, like kind of letting go of those like kind of younger kid baby picture books. And as much as Leo was laid back about decluttering, I did want his opinion on these as well. And some of the decisions were easy, like books that didn't have a lot of special meaning and that he was sort of done with and he knew he didn't want to read again. And then there was definitely some easy keeps. So ones that we definitely did want to read again and reference, and ones that were really special to us. And we ended up decluttering, I think, 9 books. And they ended up being mostly books that he's just finished with and he's read and he doesn't want to read like again. I'll probably end up dropping off the majority of these at just like the free little library in our area, so other kids can read them as well. Then there were a handful of books that he didn't want to keep in his room anymore, that he did want to keep for keepsakes. So this is the first time ever that I have kept anything like toys or books for the kids. I actually like the idea of keeping for when they're older or for when they have kids. I haven't made any final decisions, but for now, these items are all staying, like we're keeping them, but they're not going to stay in Leo's bedroom. So we're going to take them out of his book box to give him more room for stuff that he's actually reading now, and then keep an eye out for upcoming video about keepsakes, and you can see what I end up doing with these. I honestly have no clue yet. Okay, next up we headed into our garage. A lot of our client projects, especially like basements or garages, end up with a lot of bulky like waste or garbage or stuff that I need to like let go of in a different way, not just dropping off at the thrift shop. And usually right after a job, these items end up in our garage, usually like haphazardly piled around my work stuff or around our garbage bins, because at the end of a busy week, the last thing I want to do is like nitpick through all this stuff. However, I knew that I did want this dealt with like before Christmas and before the bad weather hits. And the big motivator was that we have got Leo rollerblades for Christmas, and I want this whole garage to be like cleared out and have lots of space so he can rollerblade in here with them when he gets them on Christmas. Area number 2 for this declutter session was this giant like doom pile in our garage. This is a great example where decisions have mostly like been made, but there's just like a couple of annoying tasks, like dirty things or heavy lifting, that we just sort of tend to put off, or I know I do anyway, especially when we can work around these piles. So I tried to have like a specific goal in my mind, and I knew that I really wanted to do this on a day that was like at least somewhat warm rather than when it's 10 below. There end up being quite a bit of hazardous waste, which I will just drop off at our local hazardous waste drop off. There was also a broken mirror, which was one of the things I was avoiding. So I had Scott help me, and he broke up the mirror into smaller pieces because there's rules about how you get rid of broken glass in our area. And then the actual frame was metal, so I took that with scrap metal, and there was a bunch of other scrap metal, which we can drop off at hazardous waste with our city as well. We also ended up having a shower head. It was decision that I'd been kind of avoid making because I wasn't confident with it. We had this shower head from a client project, but I wasn't sure if there was enough good pieces in it that I could donate it. So I had Scott look at it, and he's like, yeah, he thinks it's good enough to donate. So I'm gonna put that in with my donation stuff, and rather than just like throwing it out. And then the rest of it, I was just able to get all of the like garbage and tidbits into actual garbage bags and into our bins ready for the next pickup. And that's really all I wanted to do. This space never looks like super cute, but as long as it's tidy and somewhat clean and there's nothing I have to deal with, then I'm happy. Next up is an area that we just did, but it's a great example how some spaces just need sort of like continuous maintenance. So I shared a video a couple of weeks ago how we did our kids' sort of seasonal clothing changeover. And specifically my daughter's room we did, and we went through, made all the decisions, what to keep, what to get rid of, what they love, and all of that. Less than a week or two later, we were going through her clothes and we found 2 more items that we knew had to go. And I shared in the video how we have a permanent spot in the closet upstairs where we put like outgoing items during like a middle of a week when we're just like kind of doing other things and we just want to toss it somewhere. So that's exactly the space that we tackled as part of this holiday purge. And so I think what happened is we were going through her clothes again because it was like purple shirt day or something. So we were looking through things and saying like, do you want this? Do you want this? And when I held up this particular dress, she's just the way she looked at it, I was like, oh, like, do you not like this? And she's like, no, I don't like that. I'm like, okay. And I remember thinking back to when we did like her whole changeover. And I think this is something that I just assumed she would love. So I probably said something like, you want to keep this for sure, right? And so she probably just agreed with me because she felt like she should. I can tell now, like reflecting back on it, that she definitely doesn't want it. And there was just this one little second shirt that she'd actually just got. She just got it for back to school and she thought it was so cool. However, the neckline, it's supposed to sort of like swoop down and go over her shoulders and she can't stand the feeling of it. She tried it so many times and she just can't handle it. And this might be only 2 items in this space, which might not seem like a lot, but I wanted to share this because I think we get in this mentality of like, especially with clothes, like we have to do with this big thing once or twice a year. But I think that getting the habit of just purging things as you come across them can feel way less daunting. And having some sort of like outgoing bin or basket anywhere on that like main floor where the bedrooms are. So if you live in a 2-story, if you have your donation station maybe way in the basement, maybe it's worth having like a second spot for clothing and accessories on that top floor. So you're more likely to be like, oh yes, I know I don't want this. And it's easy for me to just toss it in there. Next up was something I definitely want to tackle before Christmas. Annie Rose is 7 and she hasn't really got into any hobbies or specific like sports that she's really into, but she is pretty crafty. So I know that's going to be something that she's going to get for gifts over the holidays. We've already got her, like I got her hot glue gun and I've got her like a little clay craft kit. So I knew I wanted to have enough space in our like crafts area for her to receive that gifts and it's not like overwhelming for me or her on Christmas morning. So area number 4 is our crafting area. And if you have any type of like even adult crafting or hobby area, this one might speak to you. For us, this is just 2 drawers or like 3 separate little bins that are in the dresser area that's in our living room. This system and space actually works really well for us, but I knew it was a little crowded and just like full of some junk that I knew could go. Same as when I did Leo's book basket, I knew I had a general idea of what could go, but I still wanted her sort of around to make some final decisions. The main thing that I figured could go and I wanted to go to make room was a big like kinetic sand bin. She'd received it as a gift from my mom over the summer. It actually wasn't as horrendous and messy as I expected it to be. Like obviously it's sand, so it's somewhat messy, but it wasn't really that bad. However, she kept bringing up like, we could get rid of that, we could get rid of that. So I'm like, obviously she doesn't really love this that much. However, one of her little friends that lives up the street, I know loves it. She always wants to play with it when she's over. So I said, why don't you ask her if she wants it? So Annie Rose walked it up and she was super thrilled about it and really excited. So it was like the perfect fit. And it instantly gave so much more space in here. The rest of the items were mostly just garbage and recycling. There was like dried up empty Play-Doh buckets or like actual dried up Play-Doh, dried up paint and dried up paint brushes. There was also a big thing of like, we had all the Christmas cookie cutters in here because she uses them for Play-Doh sometimes, but I know that she only really uses them at Christmas. So instead of using up space here all the time, I thought let's put them in a bin and I took them down to our actual like Christmas bin. So this might seem like a relatively small sort of declutter haul in this area, but it's exactly what I needed and wanted just to have a little bit more space there before the holidays. Next up, we went into the deep dungeon, AKA our basement. We all have those spaces that we really only go to or like access very infrequently or seasonally. And for us, that is this basement utility closet. It mostly holds like paint and rags and home maintenance supplies. And for the most part, I leave this space to Scott because honestly, I'm just like not interested. However, the one other thing that's in there is the bin that holds all of our gifts, which obviously I'm accessing a lot during the months of November and December. And I knew I didn't want to have to be dealing with like a whole bunch of junk and like annoying stuff that I think is probably just clutter when I'm going into this, accessing this bin like multiple times a week. So the final area I tackled for this pre-holiday purge was this basement utility closet. I figured there would be a lot of keeps, and honestly, I was fine with that. I really wanted this to be something we did when the kids weren't around because of the gift bin. And by some chance, miracle, coincidence, they were both at friends' houses, and so we had like a 90-minute window to get this done. And I think we only ended up probably spending 30 minutes in this area. To be totally transparent, I sort of just ran out of steam while we were doing this. I wanted to pull some stuff out. I knew there were some basics could go, but I was not in the mood to do just like a full-on pull everything out, and I was fine with that. There were a few like hazardous waste things, like old paint that I knew that could go. They were from old projects. So I just added those to my hazardous waste pile that we could let go of. There was also this like pole. It's like a rod that you use like in a closet for like to hang coats or whatever. I think that's supposed to come out. Oh, there you go. So it extends like that. And the hardware was still with it. And it was from an old closet that we changed into like where I put my work stuff. So we know we didn't need to use this again, but someone else still could use it. And like I said, it has the hardware. So I'm gonna donate that. When we were doing the garage, there was one of these big, like we use a ton of this like sort of resin shelving with the little legs like this. And I had this in the garage for so long. It had come from a client's house, and I didn't know what to do with it. But then when we did this basement utility closet, we had extra of these, which is probably just from one of our shelving. So we kind of had a quick look around of our shelving to see like, do we need these legs or do we need this extra like shelf? And we don't. So I'm gonna put all of these together. There was 4 legs with it. I'm gonna put those all together and be able to donate those. So I was pretty pumped about that. The other thing that was randomly in there was an entire case of old CDs, music CDs from Scott's car. I have no recollection of these. Like, I'm not sure if they were in his car when he first started dating. I swear I've never seen these, or have no memory of them anyway. So I said, like, why are these in here? And he said, I don't know, it was just a spot to put them. So if you think that our house is perfectly organized and every little spot has zero clutter, think again. And honestly, I didn't pressure him to get rid of these. If he really wanted to keep these, I was fine with that. But he's kind of like, no, like all this music, there were certain CDs I think he couldn't stream like a long time ago, but now all of this he can get just like on Apple Music or whatever he listens to. George Strait, 22 hits. And then a lot of it's like Jay-Z, like rap, Timbaland, shock value. I don't know, are these old? I honestly have no idea, I'm terrible with music. I think there's like a lot of Jay-Z in here. Anyway, all of that he said could go, so those we are saying goodbye to. There was also this random cord that I have no idea what it's for or where it came from, and neither did he, so that can vamoose. The last final little thing was actually out of our gift bin. So we bought this hat for Leo. We thrifted it last like spring because he loved this hockey team, Toronto Maple Leafs. He loved them. And this was a great lesson because I've done this so many times where I buy gifts so far in advance that by the time, especially for kids, that by the time we get to Christmas or their birthday, the gift is irrelevant. He no longer likes this hockey team. He's moved on to a different hockey team. I kept like waiting, thinking he might change his mind, but he's definitely not changed his mind. And I want to donate this so that someone else who does love Toronto can buy this because it's like a perfectly brand new toque. And I think it's cute and another little kid would love it. Okay, that's it guys, that's our haul. A pretty decent 5 spots, I feel really good about it. One caveat to this video and just to decluttering before Christmas is I don't want these decluttering sessions to be like sort of permission or even encouragement to just sort of go wild with gifts and consuming this season. If you're working on simplifying your home, check out last week's video where I share 25 ideas of like low clutter and zero clutter gifts. And I will link that right here in case you wanna watch it. And also keep an eye out for videos over the coming weeks sharing more ideas and inspiration to reduce clutter and maximize joy and well-being over the holidays. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.